Welcome everyone to Coffee with a Codex. My name is Dot Porter and I am a curator in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books and Manuscripts in the University of Pennsylvania Libraries. I split my time with the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies, which is a research and development institute focused on manuscript studies in the Kislak Center. We have manuscript collections on our shelves. We do digital work. I do a lot of video, and Coffee with a Codex is part of my work for Sims. This is a 30-minute show and tell that I do once a week. And it's really just a way to get our books out and to show them to you. The manuscript we're going to be looking at today is one that I'm very fond of and I know very well. And you might know it too, even if you don't know it. If you follow us on social media, every Thursday, I decided sometime last year is Drollery Donner's Tag, because you have to have them start with the right, the same letter. And every Thursday, which is funny because today is Thursday, I post a drollery from this manuscript. So drollery is, we'll be seeing a lot of them today. This is MS Codex 724. It is a 13th century Bible from France. I think I said Paris in my in all of the advertisement. It's not from Paris. It's from Arras, Arras. I don't actually know where that is in relation to Paris. And it was probably written in the last quarter or so of the 13th century. There are a lot of Bibles from France from around this time, and this is a really great one. It is Northern France. Joyce says it's Northern France. Thank you. I should have looked that up. It's big. It is what I like to call a chunky boy, and it's on these. I usually use my pillow. I had to put it on these. It's going to slide around, and I'm going to try to keep it from sliding around my best. It's big. It's heavy. It has over 300 leaves. And then these wooden boards, which are very, very heavy. So I'm not even going to pick it up. You can imagine how heavy it is as I kind of shift it around here. The binding is not original. The binding is 18th or 19th century, but still it's got these clasps, metal clasps on the front, and then it would have originally had these straps going around the middle, and it's sort of the leather across the spine. So it's very nice. So let's see. Lisa says, it's great to have your hands there for scale. It's much bigger than I would have thought. Yeah, this is a secret. This is one of the reasons I do these, because a lot of times looking at the digital images, you don't get a really good sense of like what the scale is. This is very, very big. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'll bring it up again. Oh, this is just gonna absolutely slide away. Let's see. I'm going to talk a little bit as we go through about the provenance. Mostly we're going to be looking at the pretty pictures. Provenance. This was the person who owned it in, his name is Ross. Edward Ross owned this, and he is actually the person who gifted it to the library in 1947. So we've had this on our shelves since 1947. And although this looks very Victorian, it was a little bit later, probably a little bit later than that. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look. Heather says, usually they are so much smaller than we expect. Not today. That's true. All right, so I'm going to pull this down. Hopefully I'm going to be able to do this a little bit. Let's see. Can we do this? Here we go. I want to get a look at this miniature at the bottom. I have it set up so wonky today. So at the bottom, well, first of all, we can see the very first page has been, it doesn't look like this all the way, but go in, you can see the parchment is actually going to be much lighter. The reason that the front is so much darker is, I think, because there either wasn't a cover or it just rubbed up against whatever the cover was. So it got dirty and sort of effaced. But you can still see, I hope, a little scene going on down here where it's actually of the hunt. So there's a hunter and he's got a couple of dogs. Let me get my thing out of the way. He's got a couple of dogs and they're chasing a stag. And now I happen to know a little bit about the hunt because I have a podcast called Inside My Favorite Manuscript. And a few weeks ago, I interviewed Becky Pratt-Sturgis all about the hunt because she has a hunting manual. And so I know that hunting the stag happened in the autumn, and the stag was very important as a sort of symbol. And so it was the thing that you wanted to hunt. So if you could hunt a stag, there was a whole ritual around it, which I won't get into it. But I think it's interesting that this Bible opens with this scene of hunting the stag. It's not just a pretty picture. There's actually a whole thing, history and belief behind it. So I'll leave it at that. If we, let's see, turn a few pages, the Bible doesn't just start with Genesis. There is it starts with a prologue. And then we get to, here, this is fun. Let's see, that's not Tree of Jesse, is it? Let me see. I have to go back and forth with my thing here. Here we go. This is hello. Marginal. The 7 days of creation and the crucifixion here. So this is God creating the world. And here, I'll zoom in so you can see it. Here he is pulling, I don't know if I can, pulling Eve right out of Adam. And then the crucifixion down here at the bottom. And then here is something we're going to see a lot of, is a little dragon. Here, the manuscript is full of these little decorative dragons. And here's our first little drollery. We have a little bird and a lion. From what I know about this manuscript, and I don't know if this is the same for other books that are like this, that this is like one example and this isn't even an illuminated initial. There are a lot of illuminated initials in here, historiated initials, in fact. Historiated initials are initials, which is the first letter of, in this case, the books of the Bible. And historiated means that there is actually a story happening inside them. So when we get to the point where we're seeing them, I'll point them out. Oh, yes, Lisa, it is actually in a historiated initial because it's in Principio, the first words of Genesis. Thank you. I hadn't caught that. So in Principio. Yep, thank you for pointing that out. But so the initials have little stories in them. So there will be characters representing characters in whatever book we're looking at. The drolleries don't seem to, at least not all the time. They seem to be just sort of little interesting, funny, pretty, sometimes little guys, I call them little guys, hanging out in the margins. And something that I noticed as I was going through the process of doing the work for Drollery Donner's Tag, because I don't do them every time. I don't do them every week. I have the book and I take 50 pictures or whatever, and then I queue them up. Is that The drolleries, 98% of the time, that's not a real number, I don't know, but mostly only appear on pages where there are illuminated initials. So here we have beginning of Exodus. So there is an initial. Sorry. So here's an illuminated initial of the start of Exodus. That's going to be Moses with his horns and probably Aaron, I'm not sure. But they're getting ready to take off. And then if we look up to the top, there's a little cat there. I'm going to shift this, see if we can get a little closer to the cat. So when I think about the process that went into doing this, I don't know, Lisa can yell at me if she thinks this is very silly. I imagine an artist coming in and doing the illuminations. There's dragons, you know, there's gold, there's all of this, and the initial. He does the initial, and then he gets a treat, and he gets to make a little guy in the margin. This is how I think about this process. It's like it's work, and then you get the little fun thing to do. Because I don't know if, you know, how much the marginal drawings is really part of the official process. In addition to the larger illuminated initials, there are also these smaller ones that have pink, usually pink and blue, a little bit of red, and then gold. If I move it there, you can probably see a little bit of the gold there on pretty much every page. So this was really quite, imagine there's 330 leaves of this, just a huge amount of work and effort and materials to sort of bring this together. So Joyce has a question. Do you know how soon the image of Moses with horns began in illuminated/historiated initials? I believe that the horns came in with Jerome. It was Saint Jerome who mistranslated it. So it would have been probably really early. I don't know if Lisa, sorry, Lisa, you're here, so I'm gonna call on you. If you know more, it's not, you see it, you know, a lot from pretty early, I think, but I don't know for sure. So we're in Exodus, and here we are moving into Leviticus. And again, we have down here a little initial. And so Lisa says, I don't know the earliest example, but it definitely is a long-term iconography. So here we are at the beginning of Leviticus. And I love this. You see this a lot, and it's a thing I love. You have God represented as sort of a little head poking out of the clouds. So it's a very literal, like you're talking to God up there in the sky. That's very fun. Oh, and you can also see an example of these little dragons here. So there's a little dragon. And then up at the top, we have our first, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to take this out so we can get up close. Our first little bird. There are a lot of these drolleries in the manuscript that are unique, but there are an awful lot of birds, like little blue birds. It's almost like it was his go-to if he couldn't think of something else. And I'm saying this like it's one person. This is an assumption. I don't know actually how many artists were involved. I am not an art historian. But the birds look very similar from page to page. I haven't said a lot about the text. I will just point out, you've probably noticed that the verses, the chapters are noted in the margins. So that's what these numbers in the margins are the chapters. They didn't mark verses. Here's another chapter marking. They didn't mark verses. We talk about chapter and verse. I don't even know if they had verses at this point, but they had books and chapters. And so those are the what they broke them into, and each chapter gets its own little initial. And this is an example. We see this a lot, or at least I talk about it a lot when we look at manuscripts, the way that scribes tried to give almost like navigation points for people who are going through, like figuring out where you are. And so we have the titles at the top, so we know which book we're in. And then we have the chapter numberings and these initials. So we kind of have an idea of where we are. So that's Leviticus. Let's see. Other one. I won't go to every, maybe I didn't know so far. Let's see. A few examples of things like this. This, I think, so in a lot of manuscripts, we look at this and say, oh, that's a marginal note. I don't think that's a marginal note. I think it's probably a line that was skipped. And so they said, oops, we skipped a line. So then a little bit. So there's a little mark here in the text referring to this line out here. And so somebody came through later and added that in. So you'll probably see more of those. There are notes in the margin, which we'll see later on. And I may skip ahead just to make sure we see all the interesting stuff. So Claire asks, are verses a King James development? And Lisa answers earlier than that, but later than this manuscript. It starts really when itinerant preaching picks up and preachers start indexing Bibles so they can find the text they want to preach about. So that's how verses came about. So before King James, but after the 13th century. So let's skip ahead a little bit. Oh, here's another initial. Oh, and one of my favorites here. I'm gonna take this out again. So here's another example of God coming out of the sky and saying hello. And here we have a little bunny playing a horn, which is nice. There are actually bunnies, there are a lot of rabbits in this manuscript, not only in the margins, but there are some examples of rabbits in illuminated areas of the text. I don't know, I didn't mark any, so I don't know if we'll see those. Also, this is where we're starting to see later notes, not even notes, sort of just like scribbles, some of them. So this is not medieval, someone has come in a little bit later and sort of made a little drawing. They were not shy about putting marks in books the way we tend to be today. All right. Oh, here's another one. So this is Ruth. Here's the book of Ruth. And so there's her children. And there is another one of those fantastic dragons. And up, we have a goose, maybe. I'm not sure. And again, I don't know what, if any, relevant that bird has to the story of Ruth, or if it's just sort of a fun bird. But whoop, there we go. All right. Oh, another thing about this book that I forget until I have it in front of me, it kind of smells. My hands are going to smell after I am done with it, and I'm not sure. I can't explain sort of what that scent is, but some books, not every book smells, but some really do, and this is one. Here's another example of a line that's been put in there. Let's see, I do have some pages marked. we'll get that later. I want to find some more illuminated initials. Oh, here's, so this, I didn't mark this page and I'm not actually sure. But later owners and other people who had their hands in the book wrote their names in it. And it looks like that's what this is. Let me see if I can. No, it's in the middle. We'll turn it sideways. I don't know if anyone wants to try their hand at figuring out what that name might be. It isn't marked in the record, and there are some other names which we'll look at that we know were past owners. The folio number is 130, no, 124 verso. So if you can see that, so that was Lisa asking me what the folio number was. So here are, again, here's a few things going on. So we have another one of these. This is at the Latin, I can't always figure out the Latin titles. Paralaponum. If anyone knows what that is, but anyway, Proverbs, probably it's Proverbs. So here we have king offering up a lamb. I guess that maybe David offering a lamb, and there's God. And then we actually have two drolleries. We have a little doggy up here. And then we have, I love this bird. He looks like he's dancing or something there. And here's another initial. And I think that this is, so this is an explicit. So the previous book is ending. And then we have some kind of introduction, or that's not the right word, but another text before the other book starts. So the other book is starting here. So this one gets a fairly fancy initial, but not a historiated initial. It's still bigger than the other ones that we see. So this is yet another way that the scribe is sort of indicating the level of text. So we understand that this text is more important than this text over here, because this one just has a little initial. Oh, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I hope everybody's okay. Okay. There's a note here too. 17th century, I think, so a little bit later than that. There we go. So now you all know my secret is that I use a chair to attach my holder there. So here is the first one that I have marked. And this is where we have one of the names of a previous owner. And this previous owner is, let me find him. I think it's Thomas Coleman. So down here, there's Thomas Coleman. He's written his name. He's written his name down in the corner on this leaf, and we can see through the parchment that there's another one there. Let's see. Margaret says, your dragons seem to have only 2 legs. If they have a barbed tail, I think that makes them wyverns. I think so. Yes, Elizabeth, Catherine Coleman. That's probably who that name was, and maybe it should be added to the record, because her name appears again later. She was, I think, the wife of Robert Coleman, and she's listed as a co-owner in our record. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is the thing about these big books. They're really tough. And this is a little bit tight, so I can't open it super wide here. But regarding Catherine Coleman, here she is as Kate Coleman. So there's Kate Coleman, and there's Thomas Coleman written sideways. And then the other name there, let me double check, is Ellis Fitzpatrick. And our record says that it was presented to Ellis Fitzpatrick by Thomas and Catherine Coleman. This folio number is 250 recto. So this is 250 recto. And it is the start of the book of Amos. And it has an illuminated initial. When I said that God came out of the clouds as a common thing, I was not kidding. I didn't pick these on purpose, but it happens an awful lot in the iconography. So there we go. And here we have, I think that this is like chicken with a dog's head, which is pretty cute. I like him. There's another historiated initial and some interesting things happening over on the other page here. I'm not sure who that is, but again, we have God. And then I've never actually seen this before, but it looks like a little knight instead of a dragon. Like, let's mix it up a little bit and have a guy with a sword there. And the sword, there's something up with the sword. I think what's happened is that it was originally silver and it's been tarnished. And so that's why it kind of looks black like that. And then, of course, because there's a historiated initial, we come to the bottom and we have another one of these bluebirds, these ubiquitous bluebirds that are sort of everywhere in this book. All right. And there's a question. Martha wants to know, do I know what profession was Thomas Coleman? I don't know anything about him beyond his name in the record. So I think with a little, if he had this manuscript, he must be, I mean, I would think he would be known because this is just such a fantastic book. Here is another, Thomas Coleman written down here again. He really liked writing his name. I assume it was him writing his own name. Another initial and a blue bird. And I just have one more. Oh, that's at the end. Here we go, because I know I am mindful that we have one more minute. So let's see if we can find one more. Let's see. This is a little tough to see because it's right there in the margin. Another little historiated. This is Romans. So this is the start of Romans. We did finally make it to the New Testament. Oh, and here's our drollery. I almost didn't see it. There's a little dog popping up in the margin. Martha, yes, you may email me. Anyone who would like to can email me at dorp@upenn.edu. I'm happy to get emails. All right, and I think that oh my gosh, okay, one more. Because this is a camel. Here's a little camel. And it's 12:31 now. So the camel and I are going to say thank you very much for coming today. And I hope this was fun and maybe a little bit educational, although I mostly want it to be fun. Thank you so much. And hope to see you all again next week or whenever you can make it. You can reuse your link and your password so you don't have to register. You can just show up. So I'm going to sign out. So bye-bye.